Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 12th day of December 2020. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got, go up one more here, get farther to the north. That's where all the action is as far as winter weather advisories go. And it continues there in the Koyukuk Valley, the central interior around Tanana, eastward there into the Fairbanks area, the greater Fairbanks area, and also up into the Yukon Flats there, Fort Yukon, and actually extends a little farther to the north there, but not quite reaching Arctic Village. Anyway, that's out, until 3 p.m. Sunday. And again, it's for areas of blowing snow with areas of winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour. And that will create in blowing snow visibilities down to a half mile at times. And again, that's until 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon. And then go up north there, that's the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. That's also a winter weather advisory there for, and that's out until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, for basically the same conditions, blowing snow. Little new snow expected, just what's already up there blowing around, and with winds gusting 45 to 50 miles an hour, visibilities will drop possibly to a half mile or less at times. And then go out to the Bering Strait there, St. Lawrence Island, on up into the Bering Strait coast. That's also a winter weather advisory. A little bit stronger winds, looking for winds gusting to 55 miles an hour. Let's see, that's out until 9 p.m. Sunday. So tonight through Sunday evening until 9 p.m. winter weather advisory, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast. And that's for looking for possibly 2 to 4 inches of additional snow, those winds gusting to 55 miles an hour like they've been doing today at Gamble this afternoon. That'll reduce visibilities also to a half mile or less, and possibly even maybe lower than that at times. Right now, just going with the winter weather advisory, which should cover it pretty well. Otherwise, that's it for the warnings, watches, and advisories around the state. So moving on to satellite imagery. Several lows there, a band of moisture, band of clouds here extending from off the Pacific Northwest coast, northwestward, across Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, all the way up Seward Peninsula, spilling into Kotzebue Sound there in the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, and then into the Russian Far East. Now, on the south side of that band, there's three distinct circulations, low pressure centers, one north of the or northeast of Shemya there, and another one just barely north, or very close, actually just north of the Pribilof Islands, and then the strongest one there is southwest of the Queen Charlotte. So southeast flow, bringing that moisture northwestward into the Kodiak Island area, and to a lesser extent to the Kenai Peninsula North Gulf Coast into the interior. And the heaviest rainfall amount was at Kodiak, and they were right under it with about half an inch of rain in the last 12 hours. And eastern portion of Kamishak Bay, a couple of locations that are really in some upslope areas had over an inch in the same period there, and a little bit of light precipitation with warmer temperatures over the southern Kenai Peninsula area. But other than that, not too bad precipitation-wise. Akiak picked about 1/4 of an inch for the other heavier amount. And other than that, some showers brought about 0.12 of an inch to Atka Island, and only 1 or 2 hundredths anywhere in the interior there on the west side under clouds with the moisture, mostly mid and high level moisture. And the tightening gradient over the interior really picking the winds up. That's more the weather story than whatever light snow fell with that moisture field over the west-southwest part of the state. And we'll see the a lot of lines on the chart there from the Brooks Range southward, all the way actually to the North Gulf Coast, almost into Bristol Bay, and of course across the Panhandle where there are gale warnings out for the Lynn Canal area. But we've had winds in the interior. Beaver, for example, gusts to 35 miles an hour there along the Yukon River, up in the Yukon Flats area, northeast interior. And Indian, they're off to the west. They're a little bit higher elevation. They had gusts of 50 miles an hour. And then over towards the eastern Norton Bay area, Unilak fleet picking up wind gusts to 50 miles an hour as well. And for the Gamble, St. Lawrence Island, excuse me, thought I was going to end up coughing. Had northeast winds gusting to 55 miles an hour and some snow moving into the area there as well, light snow. And that's just grazing the southwest coast with that low, the one center there just north of the Pribilofs and one farther back to the west. And then that band of moisture really loses its precipitation over the southwest interior in Bristol Bay, kind of being blocked out by the Aleutian Range there and the North Gulf Coast, with just a lot of clouds spilling into the southwest interior. It could be a couple isolated light snow showers or flurries, but nothing that amounts to much. With the heavier rain, that really wasn't that much heavier. Kodiak Island on up with even lighter amounts for the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. And dry for the Panhandle, mostly clear, variably cloudy. A few clouds around, but basically pretty fair up over the interior all the way to the Arctic coast and beyond with the VFR flying. Areas of rain and showers, brisk west winds for the Aleutians. That will continue into tonight with mixed precipitation, mostly AKwx out to Shimian-Attu, up to the Pribilofs. Otherwise, they'll fall mostly in the form of rain at sea level for Atka Island to the Fox Islands, where it tapers off, and should be dry for the Alaska Peninsula with light winds. And it'll stay breezy, Kodiak easterly flow, turning a little more northeasterly for low clouds, fog, along with the periods of rain. And mixture across southern Cook Inlet, but very light snow showers up western Cook Inlet, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, eastern slopes of the Kuskokwim Mountains. And then it kind of picks up a little bit, but even over the Yukon Delta, not very heavy at all. Winter weather advisory, though, for St. Lawrence Island. And then the gusty winds and areas of blowing snow over the central eastern interior. Otherwise, front pushes moisture up with that rather vigorous low pressure area, trying to push into the southern or towards southern Gulf of Alaska. So look for a pretty good shot of rain tomorrow coming into the south coast, Prince of Wales Island. Mixture precipitation working from south to north. Also, that's the falling pressures there, that front approaching the Queen Charlottes and Prince of Wales Island. That's going to tighten up that gradient. So just pretty good wind gusts there. Gales with wind gusts maybe 50, 60 miles an hour there through Lynn Canal. And stays quite windy, Copper River Basin, eastern central interior, all the way up to the western Arctic coast. Less wind there over the southwest interior. Chance of light snow continues, light snow showers, but whatever falls won't be very significant. And basically dry with that low center near the eastern Aleutians. And actually all the Aleutians look pretty dry with some possible clearing for Shimian-Attu as well as even AKwx. And the outlook for Monday, shaping up like this. That initial front comes up, washes out into a trough as it hits the coast and makes landfall along the Panhandle for mixed precipitation there. And that actually got a surge of moisture, clouds, and warmer conditions pushing up north of the eastern Alaska and central Alaska Range there into the mid and upper Tanana Valley, possibly as far north as Eagle, but snowfall will be pretty light with that as it crosses the Alaska Range, but still quite windy. But winds will tend to diminish, but won't end completely there for the Copper River Basin and areas like Delta. And gradient stays pretty tight there south of the eastern Brooks Range, western Arctic coast area, but a lot less wind really across the southern and southwest quarter of the state. Low pressure weakening over the Alaska Peninsula for mixed precipitation there, north and northwest, mostly in the form of snow. Down along the coastline in the Pacific, of course, in the form of rain. Moving on to lows for tonight, 10 to 20 to 25 below up over the central and northeast interior areas, as well as the north slope. Otherwise, single numbers in Sitna Valley to teens, northern Cook Inlet, Matanuska Valley to lower 30s down toward Kamishak Bay. Quite a range over the Panhandle. Call it 16 to 40 degrees for the lows. Mid-30s Kodiak Island, lower 30s Alaska Peninsula, mid-30s Aleutians Pribilofs. And highs tomorrow up near zero over the central interior there. Call it 2 below at Fairbanks, 2 above at Tanana, 9 degrees at Bettles for your high, below zero for the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, but not that cold. And mid to upper 30s, southern Kenai Peninsula, lower 40s Kodiak Island, as well as the central and south coast of the Panhandle, lower 20s up toward Haines and Skagway, and upper 30s for your highs for the Aleutians. Lows on Monday morning. Not too bad, warming near zero over the central interior and just barely below zero for the Fairbanks area. Still 15 to 20 below there in the North Slope, Eastern Brooks Range area. and upper teens northern panhandle, upper 30s along the south coast, and highs for Monday afternoon getting above zero there in the central interior, 5 to 10 above, and then around 10 below for the Brooks Range and below zero for the North Slope and Arctic coast. Mid-20s for the northern Cook Inlet area, lower 20s sit in the valley, and lower 30s to mid-40s for the southeast coast. Out west, highs near 40 for the Aleutians, upper 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 20s for St. Lawrence Island.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to first line weather graphics. Sunday morning, you've got some marginal VFR along the Arctic coast up there, but north slope southward, all the way into northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and the Panhandle, all VFR, and down into the lower Yukon River Valley area, Norton Sound VFR. IFR, though, St. Lawrence Island into the north central Bering. Marginal for the Pribilofs and Atka Island, VFR, western Aleutians from Adak all the way to the Komodorskis, Fox Islands VFR. Most of the Alaska Peninsula, these western areas from Sandpoint on west, VFR, and then IFR, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, Southern Cook Inlet, definitely Kamishak and Kachemak Bays, maybe part of Resurrection Bay, especially out toward Kane's Head and Montague Island. Afternoon, not much change from that. More along the coastline, though, of the Kenai Peninsula, and it looks like Kachemak Bay becomes marginal. Northern Cook Inlet stays VFR all the way up, all the interior, VFR to the Arctic coast and beyond. Panhandle, VFR. Marginal VFR bearing straight to St. Lawrence Island, then that chunk of IFR there, an extension from the one along the southwest coast into the northern Bering Sea. But the Pribilofs becoming VFR and just marginal VFR east of Atka to Akun Island, and otherwise VFR, Shimmy and Attu to Adak and Atka, as well as the Alaska Peninsula. And for Monday morning, we still have some IFR, although it's starting to break up a little bit there along the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, south of St. Matthew Island, north of St. Paul, north coast of St. Lawrence Island, some IFR, otherwise marginal, and some VFR scattered in over the Aleutians, along with mostly marginal conditions, and marginal VFR, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, IFR into the southwest interior, Iliamna Lake, Kamishak Bay, Barren Islands, northern Fognak Island, along the southern Kenai Peninsula, right on the edge for Kachemak Bay, and then up into Prince William Sound, and east-southeast to the coast of the Panhandle, southern Panhandle IFR, marginal up toward Lincoln Island Glacier Bay, and some patchy areas of IFR over the east central interior there, but VFR, Arctic coast and North Slope. And for the afternoon, marginal VFR comes into the scene there for the Arctic coast and western and central North Slope to the Brooks Range, but south of the mountains there, VFR. But a lot of big dropping conditions over the interior, with marginal VFR covering just about all of southern Alaska, and IFR pushing into western Cook Inlet from the western Alaska Range across northern Kuskokwim Valley, and a narrow band back out across Togiak Bay, Cape Newenham to the Pribilofs. IFR right around St. Lawrence Island, and for Adak to Kiska and Amchitka looks IFR. Marginal for the Panhandle, Anatuvik tomorrow looks pretty good. VFR for both Anatuvik and Adigan, and Lake Clark and Merrill called it marginal VFR, especially on the eastern approach. And for rainy, I'll say VFR with a risk of some marginal VFR eastern entrance. Windy though, VFR. Isabel, VFR. VFR also in the forecast from Antasta and Tanita as well. Good VFR flying day tomorrow with Portage. VFR, possible marginal VFR on the eastern entrance early on, but that probably won't stick around very long. So it's looking good there for that pass. Chilkoot and White, good VFR. And for the freezing levels, we've got it at the surface there. Fairways north in the Bering Sea, right across St. Matthew Island, and then southeastward into Bristol Bay, hugging the North Gulf Coast and most of the coast of the Panhandle. Inland a little bit over the southern areas, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the southeast coast to Kodiak Island, about 2,000 feet. And a band of icing potential there across southern Alaska from the Alaska Peninsula of possible isolated, considerable, moderate mixed or rime, and then pretty good none to the north, and Bering Sea virtually empty, kind of the remnants of a front brings a slight chance of some icing there to the western Aleutian areas, and then the heavier stuff still off to the southwest. And for the jet stream, got a series of lows there strung out across the central and southern Bering Sea into areas south of the Gulf of Alaska, so southeast flow 40, 55 knots, but up to 60 knots for Kachemak Bay. Otherwise light in the central interior, easterly winds 50 knots, and the eastern Arctic coast. And for 9,000 feet, about the same pattern there, or there we go, 3,000. There we go, 75 knots out of the east there, a little stronger now at this elevation for 3,000 feet, and 50 to 65 knots off the southeast coast. And for turbulence, look for moderate chop there for the Panhandle, extending northwestward to the eastern North Gulf coast, across most of the Cabo River Basin, into all of the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country, across southern Yukon Flats, especially over the mountainous terrain over the interior, all the way up to the northwest coast.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
Okay.
Since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm's white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, it'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice?
Ah.
All three of these are white. The
Right.
snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud?
Right.
How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice?
Okay.
It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit.
Okay.
See, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at.
Oh, okay.
Part of that's visible light, what we
Right.
see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back.
Okay.
And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that.
Okay.
And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful.
Oh,
And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble,
Right.
and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
Be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum,
Right.
but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but it has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Denali. We can see the shadow of Denali over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Denali at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Easterly winds up along the Arctic coast there, and that's kind of pushing the ice a little bit offshore there on the west side from, well, along the west side down toward Cape Lisburne. That's signified by that narrow bluish area you see there, and also areas east-southeast of Wrangel Island, that thinner ice area also starting to close off. Bering Strait has closed off there just from what it was yesterday, and Norton Sound's, of course, still iced in and edging in closer toward eastern St. Lawrence Island. Coastal water forecast for tomorrow: southeast coast gales, south coast south 45 knots, 26-foot seas. And for the central coast, east-southeast winds 40 knots with seas around 25 feet. Small craft advisories up on the north coast with seas at 20 feet, and winds will be out of the east at 30 knots. Gale warnings for Lynn Canal: north 40, gusts 55 knots, north 30 sustained, probably some higher gusts as well for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, swing it around to the southeast, small craft advisories for 25-knot winds. Outlook for Monday: southeast 25 for Clarence Strait, so no change there with 5-foot seas. Passage Canal, north winds 25, and small craft advisories also for Lynn Canal, north 30, seas 5 feet. Gale warnings continue on the south coast, strongest there along Prince of Wales Island, southeast at 40, 25-foot seas. Central coast or so, east 35, north coast. Winds drop off to 20 to 30 knots out of the east with seas just under 20 feet. Prince William Sound, look for northerly winds tomorrow, sustained about 20 knots, seas around 4 feet. We've got gales for the North Gulf Coast for 35-knot winds on the east side out of the east, and the west side there, northeast 35 with 22-foot seas. And just under storm force winds there for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, east-northeast 45 knots, and Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, gales, northeast 40, 16-foot seas. Small craft advisories, pretty brisk wind there for northern Cook Inlet for 30-knot, for winds will be northeast at 30. And then those come down to 20 knots on Monday for northern Cook Inlet, and down to 30 knots there south of the Forelands. Minimum gales now for Kamishak Bay, east 35 knots, the Barren Islands, small craft advisory southeast at 30, and the North Gulf Coast, southeast winds 25 knots, seas a little under 20 feet, and Prince William Sound, easterlies at 15. Heading out to Kodiak Island, go Shelikof Strait, northeast pretty stiff there. Northeast gale at 40 knots, 20-foot seas. 40-knot easterlies there on the east side of Kodiak with 24-foot seas. Gale warnings, northwest 35 knots, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. And Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, you're looking at northwest or west-northwesterlies there. The arrow fell off, not enough glue. 30 knots, 12-foot seas. Much lighter winds on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northwest 15, and Bristol Bay, northeast at 30. And for Monday, small craft advisories, Kodiak Island, variable wind direction there, southwest on the east side of Fognak and Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, east or east-northeast, 25 knots, 30-knot winds from the west, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. And for the Alaska Peninsula, call it west-northwest, 20 knots, sea 6 to 11 feet. Small craft advisories, Bristol Bay, north 25. Unalaska Island tomorrow, west-southwest, 15 to 20 knots. Unmak Island, westerlies, 25 knots. Small craft advisories also for Adak and Atka. And Amchitka, west, 30 knots, seas 13 to 15 feet. And for Kiska to Shimianatu, northwest 25 with 12-foot seas. They'll swing around to the southeast at 30 knots. During the day and especially in the afternoon on Monday there for the area from Kiska to Shimianatu, and then Amchitka Island south 25, Adak and Atka southerly 20 to 25 knots, Unalaska Island southwest 20 to 25, and lighter winds for Unalaska Island out of the west 15 to 20. And for the southwest coast, we've got east winds 20 to 25 knots, Pribilos much lighter though, north at 10, and St. Matthew Island east 30 knots, gales for St. Lawrence Island for 35-knot winds out of the east. And for Monday, St. Lawrence Island, east winds at 30 knots, southwest coast, north to northeast 15 to 20. Still light winds for the Pribilos, north at 10. St. Matthew Island, northeast at 20. And the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for tomorrow, winds coming down there on the east side to 20 knots. Otherwise, brisk wind advisories for the central and part of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for northeast 25. Gales for the western Arctic coast, 35 knots. Easterly gales, Cape Beaufort, all the way down to Wales for 40 to 45 knot winds. And gales continue from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, east 45 knots, and from up the coast there to about Point Lay, we'll call it east at 35 for gale warnings. Brisk wind advisory central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast. For tonight, a big storm there southwest of the Panhandle starts to affect the area with increasing winds and precipitation working south to north slowly, and stays windy over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.